Hello and welcome to ESLX 167. My name is Cheyenne, and today we'll continue our discussion on The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. Before we get started, I'd like to warn you that this lesson is rated R, so if you're not an adult, please leave. So, The Taming of the Shrew, it was published in 1594. It was set in present day at the time of the release. So, what does that mean? It was not set in the past, future, right. It was set in the then and now, then. And what kind of play was it? Comedy, yeah. So, what kind of English was Taming the Shrew? We're up to Act 2 now. Everyone should know this. Early modern English, that's right. What's the verb here? It's labeled taming, right? The taming of the shrew. And what kind of verb is that? Present participle. How do we know? Because of the ing. So the shrew is the object. How do we identify the object? It receives the verb. Very good. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. William Shakespeare. That's from Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2. So according to Shakespeare, in that play anyway, he's saying, what does a name mean? Well, what does the name of this play mean? Before we get into that, what would it be called if it was released today? If it was a Hollywood blockbuster film, what would we see on the poster outside of the movie theater? The Taming, the Shrew, a taming of a shrew, the taming of a shrew, possibly. The training of the, go ahead, say it. Yup, quite possibly. They might not actually put it on the poster, but it would be said in the film, no doubt. Speaking of film, 10 Things I Hate About You. It was also released in the 90s, but it was the 1990s and not the 1590s. It was based on The Taming of the Shrew, and its name, however, comes from Sonnet 141, its title. So 10 Things I Hate About You is Cat Stratford, this lovely lady here. It's the poem that she recites at the end of the film, whereas at the end of The Taming of the Shrew, we have Kate, not Cat, giving a monologue. So let's take a look at this Sonnet 141. In faith, I do not love thee with mine eyes, for they in thee 1,000 errors note. But 'tis my heart that loves what they despise, who in despite of view is pleased to dote. Nor are mine ears with thy tongue's tomb delighted, nor tender feeling to base touches prone, nor taste, nor smell, desire to be invited to any sensual feast with thee alone. But my 5 wits, nor my 5 senses can dissuade one foolish heart from serving thee, who leaves unswayed the likeness of a man, thy proud heart's slave and wrassel wretch to be. Only my plague thus far I count my gain, that she that makes me sin awards me pain. Sorry, I'm competing with the radio here. So yeah, let's dive into this title. The use of articles. We already said a taming of a shrew. Why would Shakespeare use definite articles here instead of indefinite articles? Well, that's because it was said in the play to be quite the undertaking. If you go over here to Act 1, Scene 2, line 263, we have, let's go to 262 first. Petruchio says, Sir, sir, the first one's for me. Let her go by. So the first one is the firstborn, and that is Kate. Secondborn is Bianca, which all the suitors want. So 263. Yea, leave that labor to great Hercules. So Hercules had to commit 12 different acts, and or 12 labors, and they were all, look at this, he's destroying beasts and all that. So they're saying that Petruchio taming the shrew should be up here as well. So that is why he would use definite, because it's a colossal feat. It's not just any old shrew, it is the shrew. And it's not a taming, it is the taming. So shrew is an ill-tempered, scolding woman. And it gets its name from this critter here, which is basically a mole. They make a lot of noise at night with the high-pitched squeaking, and they'll burrow under your tent if you're camping. They're supposed to eat insects, but they don't, and there's still going to be bugs all around. So they're basically useless things, small, make a lot of noise, but don't really, they can't actually directly harm you. Uh, so back to the word scolding. Here it goes, line 101. Renowned in Padua for her scolding tongue. And then 260, the one as famous for a scolding tongue. Now, what's interesting about the word scolding is that if you change the vowel O to the vowel A, you get scalding. And here it says ill-tempered, right? What's another way to say ill-tempered? Very close. Hot-tempered, right? Now, what happens if you change the O to an A? You get scalding, and scalding means what? Hot. There we go. Some fun with English. A rose bitch. I mean, a rose by which? Okay, why didn't Shakespeare use the word bitch? Why did he say shrew? Right? See, this here is a cocker spaniel, and they might be cute, little lap dogs, grandma dogs, but they have this thing called rage syndrome where they'll be fine 1 minute and then for no reason they'll just snap at you. Why didn't Shakespeare choose that? Oh, if you want another laugh on your own time, go to Act 2, Scene 1, lines 239 through 241. But again, on your own time. This is what untamed dogs can do. These are wild dogs from Africa, right? Look at that. They ran down an antelope or a gazelle or something. They're just ripping it to shreds. So that is one reason why shrew and not female dog. Because it says right here, okay, this is a big influence on this play, the Bible. This is 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 from the King James Version of the Bible. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them, the wives, according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. See, weaker, like a shrew, not like a pack of wild dogs. And as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers not be hindered. So you got to work together. King James Version of the Bible was not released until about 1611, whereas this play is from the early to mid 1590s. But the New Testament had been around for about 1,000 years. And I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was 1,000 years before the Taming of the Shrew or 1,000 years before today. I believe it was 1,000 years before the Taming of the Shrew, but hey, one more thing to Google. Sorry about that. And so this greatly influences the play, and it is quite, in fact, the theme of the play. If you want more proof of Christianity in the Taming of the Shrew, just go to Act 2, Scene 1. And I didn't put down the line there, darn it. But the prettiest Kate in Christendom, Petruchio refers to Catherine. Speaking of Catherine, this is Saint Catherine of Siena. Now, she was the patron saint of Italy eventually. She was known for having a fiery temper, but unlike Kate, she was not rich. She was actually poor, and she was illiterate, but she was still an author. Did Shakespeare know of her? Quite possibly. She was a political activist, and she spoke out against corruption in the Catholic Church. The women's liberation movement of the 60s through the 80s got the Pope to say, you know what, we're going to make this lady a doctor of the church. So this is St. Catherine. Jesus is her Petruchio. She was actually said to be married to Christ, and she wore an invisible ring. Speaking of angry saints, because I mean, why would Shakespeare put one angry saint in his book, or excuse me, in his play, and not the most famous one of all, St. Jerome? This is St. Jerome, and he is actually on the first page of induction. Let's see, line 9. No, not a denier. Go by St. Geronimy, which is, he really means St. Jerome, but he's kind of like an Archie Bunker kind of guy where he mispronounces everything and uses terminology incorrectly. St. Jerome was known for having a very bad temper, but he was outspoken against anger. He said that to be angry is to be human, but to forgive or to not lash out is to be Christian. Paraphrasing there. But he had this stone that he would keep in his hand, and when he got angry, he'd beat himself on the chest, and by the time he died, his chest was all scarred up. So, spoiler alert, we'll probably actually have to skip all this, and I'm not going to read this today because we have to close because we are out of time. So let's go with what's in a name. That depends. Did William Shakespeare write it? Because it just might be everything. Thank you for joining me, and until next time.